One of the serious side effects of COVID-19 is the number of overdose cases. HEMSI has reported an uptick in overdose-related calls, and 2 people have died in just 4 days. Our Kelly Kennedy has the latest.
HEMSI says they're seeing a big spike in drug overdoses right now. From just Thursday to Sunday, they responded to 22 suspected cases.
We see opioid and heroin type overdoses daily for the most part. But when you see a jump like that, 20 cases in 4 days, you know something's going on.
2 weeks ago, HEMSI saw another big increase in Madison County. And these overdoses aren't just happening in one area. Health officials in Memphis are also seeing huge spikes.
They're everywhere. It knows no section of town. Huntsville, Madison, out in the county. We looked at them, and there's no hot spots, if you will.
They don't know the exact reason for this, but speculate tainted drugs could be going around.
We work with the STAC team guys, the law enforcement agencies, and giving us feedback of what kind of narcotics are going around because they change.
The pandemic could be influencing people who struggle with addiction.
Right now, structure and routine are really hard for a lot of people to find. Their worlds have just been changed. Their job may have gone away. There's uncertainty.
Even though things may look a little different right now, Not One More Alabama says there are still resources available.
Be willing to go out and find new methods for supporting your recovery. We're going to have to be willing to open our minds and stretch a little bit outside of our comfort zone.
For more information, download the WZDX app and click on this story. Putting the Valley first, Kelly Kennedy, WZDX News.